Welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's still COVID-19 Watch on this segment, which is the Money Line with Nancy segment. We try as much as possible to keep you up to the minute with the economics of the pandemic. Today, we are looking at the major economic headlines, at least in the last few days. Like I said at the beginning of the program, the president did present a June 12th Democracy Day speech. The Economic Sustainability Committee also submitted its report. That committee is headed by the Vice President, Professor Yomi Osinbajo, submitted its report to the President. The Minister of State for Budget and National Planning, Clem Agba, also has inaugurated technical working groups to be able to come up with a workable report concerning Nigeria Agenda 2050. That report is supposed to succeed Nigeria Vision 2020 that ends December 2020, as well as the economic growth and recovery plan, ERGP. I hope I got that right. Too many acronyms, though. So we have quite a lot to discuss with my guest today. Dr. Adedeji Adeniran is the Director of Education and Governance Research at CSEA. Dr. Adeniran, good to have you join us today. Welcome to the program.
Sorry, Nancy, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yes, I can hear you clearly. I was just welcoming you to the program. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, just before you came in, I was actually telling our viewers that so many economic headlines in the last few days. From the President's June 12th speech, you'd get a lot of bullet points. I hope my team should put that on the screen for our viewers because so many things the President said. Vice President Osinbajo's Economic Sustainability Committee has submitted their reports to the President. Of course, that committee is an interministerial committee. I need to say that is different from the Economic Advisory Council put together by Mr. President. So many things to talk about, but which major headline are you watching? Among all those headlines, which major headline are you watching?
So for me, what has been important for me is to look at what our government has been responding to this crisis because, we have the crisis on our hands. So there is not much we can gain from saying there is problem. Everybody knows there is problem, but how do we ensure that this problem doesn't escalate more than what we can chew? How do we ensure that we, I don't want to say recover to the past, but we build a robust economy beyond what we have done in the past? So my interest over the last few months has been around what has been our response to this problem and what has been our response to this unique opportunity. As they used to say, it's not a good thing to waste an opportunity. And this present situation is also an opportunity for us as a country to look at what has been the kind of structural bottlenecks to our development over the past years. What are the kind of challenges whereby this is actually a global problem, but there has not been any problem in the world, either oil or anything that doesn't affect us as a country. So how are we building our resilience to shock? So those are the kind of question I have been trying to zero in on. And to say that in our analysis of this pandemic, there's been a lot of analysis and concentration on recovery, which is good. Nobody wants to experience this shock. But if we think of this recovery as to recover back to our past, I would say our past is not that good. This is an economy that over the 11 consecutive period that the president mentioned, where our growth was less than 3%. And you cannot expect, even when you look at government's own assessment of itself, ERPG, government's own claim is that we will be growing between 4 to 7% over those periods. And we were unable to achieve it. So recovery or going back to the past is not what I'm much more interested in, but in we actually rediscovering or using this period as a discovery moment to look at what is really, really wrong with our economy and develop a strategy that we can rebuild strongly and we can build a nation that we so desire. So that's actually what has been what I zero in on in all of this news splittering around COVID-19.
You know, I like the fact that you said even though we are concentrating on recovery, we shouldn't concentrate on recovery to the past because our past wasn't that wonderful. If you take a look at GDP numbers,
Sure.
yes, it wasn't that wonderful. Do you think that the government is mindful of that fact? Because it seems that the mode which the government is right now is that, of course, we're going to enter a recession, but according to the Economic Sustainability Committee, that if a fiscal stimulus of about 2.3 trillion naira is injected into the country or into the economy, 500 billion naira for COVID cushioning effects, the other one point something, over 1 point something trillion is gotten from the monetary authorities in their intervention funds and all of that, that will definitely lessen the recession. That means we're going to enter it, but it may not be as deep as we expect. So do you still see that the government is going back to the mode of, let's just go back to where we were? You know, where we were was a bit comfortable and not thinking of where we were wasn't too good, but can we use this opportunity to skyrocket?
Yes. Yeah, so if you look at what government has been doing, I think you can't force government attention to ensure that we don't enter into recession, or that if we enter into recession, that it should not be as a chronic one like it has been forecasted. I mean, when you look at the forecast, some projection looks like between 5 to 10% decline in GDP, about more than 30 million loss of job. I mean, nobody wants that to happen. So you can say or argue that that should be like government first priority. But we have to actually do that side by side. The other one, which is very pertinent, which is how do we rebuild for a better economy? How do we inject some of the needs that we need, what we have been missing in the past? How do we inject it into this conversation so that by the time we get out of this problem, we don't start to address some of the issues that we should have long have addressed? Let me give you an instance. The issue of fiscal reform has been on the agenda for many years. I mean, a lot of people have argued that this cost of governance is too much for this country. Now, when you look at fiscal reform package that government has so far implemented in this, you can see that the concentration is around reducing subsidy. Of course, which you can't argue against that also. But if we are trying to reduce subsidy, what about reducing cost of governance? Have we concentrated on that part of the challenges that a lot of people have argued over the past year? When you look at part of the conversation, we are closing down schools and the rest. Have we looked at when we reopen these schools? If you look at the statistic about learning in Nigeria, I mean, it's not something very good. And you ask yourself, if we reopen back the school, are we going to face the same challenges? Are we going to just move on with the way we have been moving on in terms of pupils in school not being learning, or the massive population of children that are out of school? I mean, so these are the kind of conversation that we don't need to choose. It's not a trade-off issue. It's something that are synergetic, such that we can discuss both immediate responses and both fundamental and long-term issue at the same time. I mean, we can combine it. It's not too much for us to combine in terms of designing strategy.
What kind of strategy I know these are a lot of strategies designed, but what kind of strategies can we really put in place that will address safely reopening the economy fully amid decreasing cases of coronavirus in the country? Because our cases are increasing I guess perhaps they are doing more testing now, and there are a lot more people being infected. Who knows if there are even more people being infected than the number of people that are being tested. So it means, how can the economy really survive, or how can the economy really move pari passu via rising cases of coronavirus pandemic? Our children are still at home. We are still awaiting domestic and international travel to take on. So how do we balance all of this?
So, Nancy, is a very difficult thing to do, but I mean, we need to try our best. That's the key thing here. So, when you look at in the past, government has carried out lockdown, and the message is clear. We don't have actually that strong system, physical or social palliatives, in order to withstand that. So, we had to reopen. And by we reopening, one thing that we have been trying to emphasize, or government also on their part has been doing, is to ensure that we keep reinforcing to the people that we've not overcome this problem, is still there. I mean, the essence of we locking down is to ensure that we implement a system that enable everybody to be distanced from themselves. But if we ourselves, in our own activities, in our own interaction, I mean, ensure that that in itself, we'll make sure that economy is not signally impacted in terms of restricting economic activities. But at the same time, we begin to achieve what we have been achieving, what we intend to achieve, which is to reduce the health cost of from COVID-19. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is some activities we might not fully reopen them. We just might have to reopen them a bit. Let me give you an instance of one thing I've researched around, which is education. If you look at what we've done so far around education, before they closed down, by our own analysis, more than 70% of the kids that are in school are not learning. I mean, if you ask them at the age of 7 years to 8 years, to read simple sentences and to answer questions around this, they were unable to do it. So there's a lot of learning crisis going on. Now,
are you talking about the private or the public schools? Because perhaps we need to draw that dichotomy.
In general.
Oh, okay.
In general. But you should know that majority of kids in Nigeria are actually in public school. So they absorb majority of what you talked about. So public school is a major challenge, and also in the rural area. I mean, if you do the breakdown of the analysis, but the point of the matter is people are not learning. And I looked at a recent statistics released by MBS. Yes, when you look at the total number of pupils not doing anything. I mean, not doing anything at all. I mean, we said we are trying to do some pilot. 62% of kids are not doing anything at all now. So the question is, they will resume back, and I mean, it will aggravate the learning crisis we have. So you need to ask the question, there is a need to actually introduce measures to make ensure learning continues even during this crisis. So those are kind of issues we need to address. So we need to look at how can we ensure we reduce the damage to the system across sectors. So it's not an aggregate kind of intervention. We need to look at sector by sector. And we have to maybe reopen sectors whereby we can effectively reduce the spread of the disease. We should also, I mean, there are some interventions. For example, I've asked myself the question, why do we continue to close down the market for, why can't we open the market every day? Because the essence of this is to enable people to have social distancing. But whereas you said we should open like 2 or 3 days times in a week, when we do this, what happens? We congregate people in a single place in some strategic location, which means if we are to model spread of diseases, this will be higher under that scenario. So we need to look at alternative intervention that we can do. For the economy, I think we are seeing some reopening of major economic activities. But a lot will not still happen until we see what is happening to the global economy. because we are not living in silo. What is happening to other countries matters for us. So we need to look at what are other people's doing and ensure that we use this opportunity, most especially as a way to rethink our approach over the past years. We can reopen, say, this year or anytime we talk about reopening. But if we fail to use the lessons, if we fail to use this period as a moment to rethink our process, maybe we have lost this opportunity forever. And that's not the kind of things we need to get at. What we need to do is we need to learn lessons. We need to learn what has not worked and what will work. And that's part of it. So, for example, look at diversification issue. We need to take that strategy much more concretely. In the presidential speech that you referred to, government talked about using intra-African trade in order to expand Nigerian export diversification drive. But you look at it, there is a lot of discussion about the Continental Free Trade Agreement. But given that Nigeria has not yet ratified it, we are not on the table to discuss part of the modalities that will enable us to achieve that. And so you see the body language of government is that we will join, but we are not part of the discussion so far. So we might also not be able to tap into such kind of advantages that we are referring to. So what I think is we need to be strategic about trying to balance the situation between gradual reopening and mitigating the health impact of COVID-19.
You know, I wanted to intentionally avoid this, but you're bringing me to it because it seems, especially with the WTO, the World Trade Organization, DG's candidacy being open, and the president nominated Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who happens also to be the chair of CSEA. Is she not? Yes, I think she is. We don't know her polls. Yes. So
yes,
the federal government is nominating her for that position. Nigeria does not have a trade policy. Our trade policy is 21 years old. With also what you said, you know, in terms of what is our position in the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we haven't ratified yet. So what kind of example are we laying out there? And I don't know if the president was mindful of this when he was doing that nomination. To say, do you understand where I'm coming from? In terms of perhaps the political part of that, it's not even the political part of it really, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
So, the point I'm trying to make is this. The whole conversation that the government is having point to the fact that, I mean, you see there is like a consensus within government that we will join this Continental Free Trade Agreement. We will ratify it, right? And an emerging consensus itself also points to the fact that there is a lot of opinion that we can tap into this as an opportunity. So, I mean, the decision is clear. The question is, we need to move from rhetoric to action. And that's the point I'm trying to make. The action part is we need to be part of the discussion and conversation. We need to be on that table, add as part of the modalities, those that will favor us as a country, right? And that's quite clear. So that I want to emphasize that we as a country, there is a consensus emerging among experts and the rest. I mean, if you look at government-owned reports that try to assess some of the perception of key stakeholders, you find out that there is a lot of support for it, but we are not taking action, and delay action can cost us. So if there is any problem we have in terms of negotiation with people on the ground, I mean, we need to take those actions. Without that, I mean, we might join in at the end of the day, but we might not get the whole benefit that we should, because people on the table might have moved on in their conversation and in their discussion, and that would affect us greatly. So that is one point I need to emphasize.
If we take a look at the rising cases of coronavirus infections in the country, about 16,085 is put by the NCDC. with over 400 new cases confirmed yesterday. We are gradually moving towards the 20,000 mark. Of course, the global cases gradually approaching 8 million. What are your fears? Because for me, at the beginning of this crisis, at least in January or in February when the first case came in, my own fear and concern was that we may do some things right to avoid new cases or to avoid cases from increasing, but we may just be waiting on the rest of the world to find a solution, because it seems that it's same old right now. Everybody is just going, it's as if we are just doing our normal stuff, as if there is no coronavirus in the country. And the cases will keep rising. Are you afraid or are you concerned that perhaps the way Nigeria is moving, that we may become an epicenter in Africa?
Okay, so
because we've seen astronomical cases, you are that geometric progression.
So I mean, so one thing is, if you look at the way this the spread of disease has been modeled, and you look at what we have, what we have. So I mean, there are two ways to look at it. You can either be positive or be negative. So the positive part you could think of is, okay, we've not been doing what we should do, and the disease has not spread the way. We've not become an epicenter yet. So you ask the question, maybe the effect is spreading around the population. Maybe we are developing herd immunity, which I don't think it's true, but you can be. That's one optimistic view of it. The negative view of it is that maybe we are still going there. And if we are still going there, what will be the implication? Because if you look at what I'm interested in, I'm an economics and now an epidemiologist. I'm looking at these two, the health pandemic and the financial pandemic. And given what we have experimented with so far with lockdowns, which has not been very successful, then you ask the question, what are the kind of future in the eventuality of the negative scenario playing out? One thing is we have learned some lessons, and we've seen some things that we know we can work with. One thing we need to do is to concentrate on the vulnerable population for now, which are the elderly and people with underlying disease. That's the practical health advice that expert has warned us. So in one way, that's what we need to concentrate on. And we have one strategic advantage in this. Nigeria and Africa generally, we have this huge full population, whereby a majority of our population are quite young. And for that reason, we can say that there are some advantages we can tap into, which means we can effectively target the vulnerable part of the population, the people that are elderly, the people that are sick, without much having to constrain ourselves in terms of people that we really need to be working and ensure that we don't lose in terms of the financial pandemic. So it's both a combination of economic strategies and health strategy. What the future holds is unclear to anyone and quite very difficult to predict. But if we manage it very well by targeting the vulnerable population, I will believe we can come out of this strongly. And one good thing is, the more the rest of the world recovers, the more we can concentrate on vulnerable countries like Nigeria or developing countries. So that's another thing one can be hopeful about, that if, for instance, when they were able to mitigate some of the problem they had in their own country, they were able to send people out, and they are able to also send equipment out in order to help other people. So that's another thing you could think of, because you look at Europe, you look at China and Asia, there is like declining trend in infection rate. So those countries might have opportunity of helping developing countries. But the major strategy here is we need to learn. We need to keep learning about what, as the information trickles in, what can we do better? And that's actually the crucial part of it. let's try to learn about what can we do. I mean, we have a whole lot of about 2, 3, 4 months of information gathering now that point us to what are the kind of right approaches in terms of both treatment, in terms of both mitigation strategies. So I think these are things we need to do. Let's put this information into use and build something better in terms of ensuring that we don't get to the worst case scenario.
Now, the question is, how fast are we learning? Because if you take a look at even what is happening, I'm being told, for example, like, was it in Imo State, their bed spaces are not available to admit the coronavirus patients, patients, as the case may be. With just what you said, do you think that perhaps as we open or fully reopen the economy gradually, that we should also take a look at, I heard what you said very clearly, that perhaps we should move to the management of the more vulnerable people who are the elderly and also those with underlying symptoms. We've seen cases like in Europe and in US, unless you have chronic case, you are being admitted to the hospital. Where I'm actually going to is that the strategy which we've used in the last 3 months or so, do you think that we can continue to undertake that cost because it's expensive? We'll need more bed spaces. We'll need a lot of places as treatment centers. Can we afford that? Can we now change our strategy so that it can also lessen the burden on our pocket? Perhaps mild to moderate symptoms patients are being treated with a different regimen, not coming into the treatment center. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, what I get, your point is, are we learning from what we've experienced in the past in order to ensure that we do what is right, right?
Yes, yes. And are we, from what you said, how much data have we collected, especially from European countries and from the Americas, about what is happening? They have all the money. They are printing dollars, you know, but we do not have. And how long can we continue to sustain that cost in terms of treating all the patients in Nigeria? You understand what I mean? Putting them in a center. Can that strategy continue to work? For how long?
So for us as a country, I mean, if you look at it, if you look at the strategy we've been adopting so far, whereby, I mean, it's state-led kind of intervention in responses. So a state is one that is responsible for setting up isolation centers, setting up and managing the kind of cases within their own boundary. That is kind of something, I mean, looking at our structure, fiscal federalism that we practice, I mean, that's, you accept as a way, but I mean, we need far more intervention from federal government. But even at that, we know our domestic and local capacity alone might not be enough for this. This is something we've never encountered. This is something we never prepared for. This is an health challenge that our health system itself, I mean, an health system that cannot cope with malaria over the years. I mean, Lassa fever, we have been fighting it for years. So, I mean, you know that it's not something we ourselves can work on. And that's one crucial thing, we need to tap into the global resources that is being provided, and we have to harness it. But part of the local resources, which you mentioned and I'm trying to emphasize, is global knowledge. I mean, it's not always about the money they bring. It's about also the kind of knowledge that they provided, so that you can learn better about how to do it. And when you look at existing structure in Nigeria, you can see good cases of states, government managing this very well. In terms of the trend, I mean, you see Lagos state government complaining about getting out of bed spaces and the rest, and which is something that then demand intervention by federal government, interventions by private sector, and global intervention in order to support what this government are doing. But the primary thing is the state government needs to actually do well in terms of building a way to detect people that are sick, people that have been infected, ensuring that they are well isolated. And if we do this, even if their capacity is not strong enough, we should then develop a layer of structure that supports them from both private sector to federal government to global support that can trickle into this state and ensure we manage it well. Are we going to be overwhelmed going forward? I think that's the essence of flattening the curve, or trying to ensure you put in modalities to flatten the curve. And government itself, I mean, they have more data than private individual like us have access to. I would believe maybe some of the intervention they are doing, I believe, I must emphasize that most of the information is data-driven and evidence-driven. If that is the case, you can flatten the curve in such a way that you don't reach a situation whereby your health system will be overwhelmed. And I kindly hope that is the trend. But if we don't, our system might be overwhelmed, and the implication will be there for both the health and the economy.
Yes, that's actually what I've been looking at least in the last few days, because the more cases we have, that means perhaps a lot more people are being treated, of course. The positive side of it is that a lot more people are also being discharged, you know. But we should also be careful at the number of cases that are rising, because that would also be detrimental to our economy. Let's move over to 2020 budget a bit. And I don't know if you saw what happened just a few days ago. The National Assembly, both the upper chamber and the lower chamber, approved the 2020 budget, 10.8 trillion naira. And now it was jacked by, I think, over 300 billion naira. We're seeing some budget estimates. The crude oil price has been increased, benchmark to $28 from 25 US dollars. We're also seeing over 4 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure, 2.4 trillion naira, I guess, for capex. Debt servicing, I think, will take over 2.9 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. What's your assessment of all those estimates?
So, I mean, like I've said on this show in the past, what you will want to see, especially from federal government, is more counter-cyclical kind of spending. We're in crisis. Almost every other component of the economy is going down. So you see private sector in terms of consumption and investment going down. State government doesn't have capacity to respond effectively. In fact, they have a very bad balance sheet in terms of their fiscal sustainability trend before this crisis. A lot of them are in debt crisis even before COVID-19. And so you know that their response rates would be bad, especially when the revenue is being also hit by the crisis. So you will want to say, oh, what federal government is doing in terms of trying to maintain the budgets as it were, in terms of not taking it down, it's commendable. But the question is, how do we get, what kind of spending are we making to ensure that we build, like I mentioned, not just going back to the past, but moving to building something stronger. And you ask the question, did we effectively reform or target the main problem with everybody, I mean, every citizen has been talking about high cost of governance. Well, are we able to reflect that in this new budget? The answer is no. And so we could do better in those aspects. Of course, it's not very easy to do because it has to do with a lot of political will. But I mean, this is also a crisis that offers opportunity for government to make a strong case that it can be done. I mean, if even some members of the political class are not in support, this is one government for the executive to actually stand up and say, we need to do this because of this crisis, and also sustain it after the crisis. In terms of the legislature, I mean, when they increased the budget, the oil benchmark back to $28, I mean, when you see the price trend, you want to be optimistic that is quite good, but I would have been happy for them to retain it because, I mean, one thing we've talked about prior to this crisis, that we don't have savings. We don't have like a fiscal buffer to counter these kind of challenges. If you look at what IMF growth projection for different countries, Go and check for OPEC countries and check country that has a lot of fiscal buffer. You find out that in terms of the impact, it's quite less. But countries without fiscal buffer are kind of countries that would be mostly affected significantly by this kind of issue. So we should have used this opportunity to try and reinforce the argument of the need for us to build a structure that enables us that when there is crisis, we will be able to address such challenges. And what are the kind of fiscal buffer am I talking about? You look at the sovereign wealth fund. You look at ECA account that has been mismanaged over the years. So we can try to say, okay, how can we structure this in a way that we can build resilience into it? So those are the kind of things we want to see. We also want to see a kind of budget that draw optimism among the citizens, which is we will not want the debate about what should we call. Government should also lead by example in cutting down some of cost of governance in their own part of estimate. So those are the kind of things that would spark optimism about recovery process. And we're not seeing much of this. It's one way. We have not delivered in this in the budget that was released by government. But so far, so good.
Are you somehow okay? Land on your thought.
No, you can continue.
Okay, Nigerian Agenda 2050 will succeed Vision 2020. How encouraged are you by that? Claire Magba, who is the Minister of State Budget and National Planning, has inaugurated technical working groups in different sectors. In fact, Budget 2021 would also be in line of some of the medium-term national development plan. Is this a way to go, or will this also go the way of different visions of different years which we've seen? I remember 2010, I remember 2020, now is Vision 2050. Who actually is even taking note of what has happened in the last few years till we got to 2020? You understand what I mean in terms of who is doing stock analysis, who is doing the analysis, for Christ's sake? 2050, or is it just giving up, bantering something for us? I hope you understand what I mean. I'm thinking sure, 2050 is just 30 years down the line. Let's just,
Yeah, so the Nigerian Agenda 2050, we don't know what it is, but if you look at Vision 2020, it's actually one of the most robust strategic plans for this country. The aim of that development plan is clear, to push Nigeria among the top 20 economy in the world. And you have
by 2020.
By 2020.
And we are not there now.
Yeah, so you ask the question, what were the failures? I have read this Vision 2020 document many times, and it's something you have to go back to every time to say that these are actually one of the kind of restructure that we have had. Now you ask the question, after Vision 2020, what happens to, why do we then have Vision, we have ERPG, which runs from 2017 to 2020. Before that, we have transformation agenda. So you find that every administration try to create its own agenda. And that will be a threat to Nigerian Agenda 2050 again. No matter how robust or how good it is, every administration will come on board and develop its own strategy, which might not align with what is there in this Nigerian Agenda 2050. So learning these lessons from Vision 2020, I would think what we need to do is to lead each administration to be working on its own agenda, because either we like it or not, when a new administration comes in, it will want to be known for something else, something by its own name. So and it would be measured, or its impact will be measured by that. And there will be a lot of things that will change over that time. So that's one point. The other thing is, why don't we leave it with Ministry of Finance, National Planning, to be developing this thing? To me, that would be the key job of national planning, to be setting agenda for the country and to be trying to look at broad stakeholder engagement in developing this. So that's another point I want to make, which is why don't we rebuild National Planning Department to ensure that they could work effectively, rather than we doing this thing that we don't have to use, because they will be there, and they are the one that might be supporting agenda of any administration that comes into play. So even if they are not being included now, I think it's important that they are the lead in terms of rebuilding this. Also, maybe we need to ensure that in this plan and in bringing stakeholders together, we need to limit political kind of office holder in leading it, but bringing in technocrats, because I mean, when government changes, a lot of things will change too. So, and we know in this country, the issue of policy somersault and subsequent administration trying to distance themselves from what a previous administration has done. So, but when this thing is private sector led, when it is we build a lot of technocrats input into it, and we see it as kind of an agenda that is broad-based. I mean, we reach out to everyone, including opposition parties, such that no matter the government we have in future, we will stick to a plan in terms of how do we achieve it. And learning our lessons from Vision 2020, this has not been the case. Subsequent administration have eventually turned around to make alternative proposal, in some cases not aligned with such vision. Of course, when you ask people in government, which I've done many times in the past, I mean, they will tell you that, oh, they are drawing this agenda from Vision 2020. But when you lay it side by side, there is nothing that shows any correspondence between the two. So what we need to do as going forward, we need to look at what kind of agenda is good for us. And I think Vision 2020 already lay out a lot of good plans for is for us to actually dust this document, reflect recent reality and bring it into it, and use this to build a stronger economy. To me, that's what we need to do. We don't need to embark on another white elephant kind of development plan that nobody will use, or that someone will come in and just put on the shelf. So it's Nigeria Agenda 2050 will not be good for that. So I hope we put this kind of checks and balances in order to ensure that that agenda, when it comes into being, it would be good. I mean, it will be something that we can call a Nigeria initiative, not APC or PDP. I mean, it will be like build a broad consensus of everyone, such that we own it all. Also, importance of subnational government. You know, when you look at statistics, 50%, almost 50% of government expenditure takes place at subnational level. So we need to actually bring them into the fore in terms of this plan. They need to actually, their buying is important, their support is important. It has to reflect their reality. So if some national government are not involved in building this agenda, it might as much as be a waste of time, because they implement most, or they are in charge of implementing most of what we call economic policy in Nigeria.
You know, from your analysis, there's a need for a national development plan, no doubt. I think in Saudi Arabia, they have the Vision 2030. And now the pandemic is changing it a bit. They also want to move from the oil, fossil fuel dependent economy to some other things. I think that there's also an Agenda 2050 in China, if I'm not mistaken, irrespective of the party that comes in, follows that agenda, you know, in terms of moving the $14 trillion Chinese economy to perhaps some other, to a more advanced economy in years to come. So there is a need for a national development plan, irrespective of whatever political party comes into place should go ahead with that. But I must say also in that Vision 2020 document, there's also the part of the financial FSS strategy 2020. Okay. So the part of the financial system has been moving, even in that Vision 20, where you have payment system, where you have this BVN, where you have quite a lot of things. So they've been able to sort that out. To achieve that. Yes, to achieve that. But as we close the show today, what else have we even been saying? We've been saying a lot of things to turn the corner, but what kind of upsides do we really have even in this pandemic right now? And I will need you to answer that like in 30 seconds. With all this gloom, are there some kind of upsides for us?
So
30
one
seconds.
one kind of opportunity I want to highlight is the need for a national identification system. And you can see the need for this in this crisis. We are unable to deliver social palliative because we don't have this database. So it's an opportunity to reflect on that. And when we have a national identification system, you will see that it's not only just going to be in terms of dishing out palliative. It will help in planning, it will help in rebuilding an economy. It will even help in reducing the cost of finance in the country. So it will affect a lot of things. So that's one thing I think this crisis has emphasized, that we need a national identification system in this country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeniran, for joining me today and sharing your own perspectives on the major headlines which we've been following. Thank you. I wish you a great week.